Tesh Dile, this is Sakina Bhatt and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama receives second dose of COVID-19 vaccine. His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration contribute to PM Cares Fund. Panchen Lama turns 32. Tibetans and Tibet supporters continue to demand his release. A diplomatic milestone, Office of Tibet DC hosts State Department officials for meeting. Japan Parliamentarians facilitate Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sangay. China's pervasive control and suppression of Tibetan Buddhism continued in 2020. US Religious Freedom Commission. Office of Tibet Taiwan releases biography of Kasur Kirti Rinpoche. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has received the second dose of COVID-19 vaccine at his residence on Monday this week. His Holiness had taken his first dose on 6th March at the local government hospital in Dharamshala and encouraged everyone to get the vaccine, describing it as something helpful for the greater good of humanity. As India battles with rising number of COVID-19 infections with nearly 3.5 lakh new cases, Tibetans are coming forward with assistance by contributing to India's relief measures. His Holiness the Dalai Lama made a contribution to the PM Cares Fund through the Dalai Lama Trust on Tuesday this week. Tibetan spiritual leader said that he has been following the continuing challenge that the COVID-19 pandemic has been posing across the world, including in India, with concern. The Central Tibetan Administration announced that its officials and staff will contribute their salary of a day to the PM Cares Fund. Central Tibetan Administration also issued an appeal to Tibetan communities worldwide to contribute to India's ongoing COVID-19 relief measures to PM Cares Fund. On 25th April 2021, Tibetans and Tibet supporters across the world observed the 32nd birthday of Gendon Chukyi Nyima, the world's longest-held political prisoner. President of the Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, demanded that China immediately free the 11th Panchen Lama and allow him to return to his monastery, Tashi Lumpo, in Shigatse, Tibet, and assume his vital role as Tibet's second-ranking religious leader.
I demand and urge the United Nations, human rights rapporteurs, journalists all over the world to write about him. Go to Tibet, ask the Chinese government for his immediate release so that he could enjoy basic human right like any other human being.
Similarly, Tibet supporters from all over the world expressed concern over Panchen Lama's release. The US State Department demanded that China reveal immediately the whereabouts of the Panchen Lama.
We call on the PRC government to immediately make public the Tibetan venerated Panchen Lama's whereabouts and to give us this opportunity to meet with the Panchen Lama in person.
It has been 26 years after he was disappeared at age 6. Earlier this week, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom reiterated its call for the Chinese government to release Gendon Chukyi Nyima, one of United States Commission for International Religious Freedom's religious prisoners of conscience. The United States Commission for International Religious Freedom renewed its call for the Chinese government to allow an independent expert to visit and confirm the well-being of the 11th Panchen Lama and to release him immediately and unconditionally. Congressman Jim McGovern, co-chair of Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, renews call for the unconditional release of the Gendon Chukyi Nyima and his family.
He should be freed because no government is justified in doing what the Chinese government has done to him. To kidnap and hold someone, to control his entire life and the lives of his family members for decades with no end in sight. He should be freed because he has the moral and legal right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion.
The Friends of Tibet communities across the Russian Federation, Ukraine and Kazakhstan celebrated the birthday of the 11th Panchen Lama by talking about his history and holding prayers. The Central Tibetan Administration hosted its first official meeting with State Department officials at the office of Tibet DC on Saturday last week. This is a milestone development and a moment of pride for the CTA. Lisa Peterson, the Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, and Scott Busby, the Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, and Foreign Service Officer Anton Jonginil, Jonathan Fritz, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, and Maria Mercer, the Deputy Director of the Office of International Religious Freedom, joined the meeting along with the members of the National Security Council. Sikyong also met with Congressman Jim McGovern. The congressman spoke about his visit to Dharamshala to passing multiple bills that exclusively focused on Tibetan issues. As Dr. Lobsang Singay completes his second term as the Sikyong of CTA this May 2021, Tibetans and Tibet supporters organized events to felicitate him. The all-party Japanese Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet organized an online meeting on Tuesday this week to felicitate Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singay. Mr. Shimomura Hakuban, former Education Minister of Japan and who is the chairman of the Japanese Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet, reaffirmed that they will continue to strengthen their support and make concerted efforts to help the Tibetan people, while adding that they had specially invited former Prime Minister Mr. Shinzo Abe to the online felicitation ceremony and were hopeful for his participation in the Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet. Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singay thanked the people and government of Japan for their unwavering support for the Tibetan cause during the meeting attended by former Japanese Prime Minister Mr. Shinzo Abe and Mr. Yasuhide Nakayama, Vice Defense Minister.
I still remember Shimomura Sensei and Sakurai Sensei came to Dharamsala under the direction of Shinzo Abe Sensei, and we had a very good meeting, and I was invited to visit Japan, and since then I have been visiting regularly, and I'm so happy to learn that the membership of the Tibet Parliamentary Support Group has increased to 98 members.
Similarly, the Tibetan Association of New York and New Jersey organized a memorable thank you event for CTA President Dr. Lobsang Singay for his 10 years of dedicated service and excellent leadership on 24th April in the Phuntsok Deshi Community Hall. Tibetan Association of New York and New Jersey, Philadelphia Tibetan Association, and Chigdral Sokpa presented Dr. Singay with awards and mementos on the day. United States Commission on International Religious Freedom's 2021 annual report, released on 21st April, mentioned that the Chinese government continued its pervasive control and suppression of Tibetan Buddhism even to this day. The report referred to Tibet, where it states the restrictions put on various religious activities, including banning Tibetan students and government workers from participating in traditional religious gatherings and punishing those who listen to the teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama or possessing his portrait. It also mentioned the policy to sinicize Tibetan Buddhism as emphasized by the Chinese Communist Party's General Secretary Xi Jinping during the 7th Tibet Work Forum held in August 2020. The Office of Tibet Taiwan has recently released a biography titled 3 Births in One Life, depicting the life and legacy of Kasur Kirti Rinpoche on Thursday last week. Explaining the meaning behind the title of the book, Kirti Rinpoche added that the title implies surviving the Chinese military invasion and attack that Rinpoche encountered so closely in Tibet. The biography is a 42nd publication of Ganjong Publication, and writer Li Changlin composed the book in the Chinese language. So much for today. See you next time and have a good weekend.